Christmas truces continued throughout the war despite official prohibitions from German command. German soldiers initiated these unofficial ceasefires by singing Christmas carols loud enough for enemy troops to hear. During these truces, soldiers exchanged family photographs, sharing pictures of wives, children, and parents with enemy troops. Some German units prepared small gifts like carved wooden toys or baked goods to trade with British and French soldiers. These exchanges lasted anywhere from a few hours to several days, with soldiers from opposing armies playing football games in no man's land. German officers who discovered these truces faced court-martial proceedings, but soldiers continued organizing them in secret. The practice became so widespread that German command issued specific orders threatening execution for anyone participating in unauthorized truces. German military units officially adopted stray dogs found wandering near battlefields, giving these animals military ranks and ration cards. These war dogs received formal enlistment papers and official identification tags with their assigned ranks and unit numbers. Some dogs achieved promotions based on their service records, with a few reaching the equivalent of sergeant rank. German supply officers allocated food rations for these animals, treating them as legitimate military personnel for logistical purposes. The dogs served various functions, including message delivery, sentry duty, and companionship for isolated soldiers. Military veterinarians provided official medical care for these animals, using supplies and medications intended for human soldiers. Several war dogs received military decorations for distinguished service, with formal ceremonies recognizing their contributions to unit operations. German camouflage efforts included constructing fake trees from steel and concrete that required weeks to install and fooled absolutely no one. These artificial trees were designed to hide observation posts and sniper positions, but they stood out dramatically against natural vegetation. The construction process involved teams of engineers working for days to install single fake trees, making more noise than artillery bombardments. German soldiers complained that these steel trees looked obviously artificial from hundreds of yards away, alerting enemy forces to hidden positions. The fake trees were painted in colors that didn't match surrounding vegetation, and rust stains made them even more conspicuous. Enemy artillery targeted these obvious fake trees specifically, turning them into death traps for German observers. German elastic defense strategy created confusion, so severe that German soldiers regularly shot at their own retreating units. This defensive system involved multiple lines of trenches with planned withdrawals to stronger positions, but soldiers often couldn't distinguish between authorized retreats and enemy breakthroughs. German units fired on their own men who were following orders to fall back to secondary positions. After the Marne, Chief of Staff Helmuth von Moltke allegedly told Kaiser Wilhelm, "Majestät, wir haben den Krieg verloren," signaling the failure of the Schlieffen Plan and the beginning of Germany's strategic difficulties. By late 1914, supply shortages due to economic collapse forced German soldiers to scavenge equipment from both friend and foe. The situation became so desperate that German trenches became more appealing than advancing into combat, with soldiers refusing orders to leave their comfortable underground positions. While German engineering created impressive defensive systems, their Eastern allies faced even more catastrophic Russian army's barefoot marches and mystical madness. The Russian army's logistical failures reached levels that transformed basic military operations into survival ordeals. Russian soldiers marched hundreds of miles without boots, a reality that sounds impossible but happened regularly throughout the war. The Russian army simply couldn't supply footwear to its massive forces, leaving entire regiments to trek across frozen ground barefoot. These marches weren't short distances either. Soldiers walked from training camps to front lines, covering 300 to 500 miles with nothing protecting their feet except strips of cloth when they could find them. Some men wrapped their feet in paper from letters home, while others used pieces of their uniforms as makeshift protection. The Russian supply system prioritized ammunition and food over basic clothing, meaning boots ranked as luxury items rather than essential equipment. Medical officers reported that some 1.8 million Russian troops suffered frostbite during the war, with infected foot wounds disabling more soldiers than enemy bullets during winter campaigns. Entire battalions arrived at battle positions with half their men unable to walk properly due to foot injuries sustained during these brutal marches. The collapse of traditional military order led Russian soldiers to embrace mysticism and superstition as coping mechanisms for unprecedented losses. Spiritualism rose dramatically as soldiers sought comfort from the constant death surrounding them, with entire units conducting seances to communicate with fallen comrades. Russian trenches became centers of supernatural activity, where soldiers claimed to receive messages from dead relatives guiding them through battles. Orthodox priests found themselves overwhelmed by requests for protective charms, blessed medallions, and religious ceremonies that promised divine protection from bullets and shells. Some Russian units refused to attack without elaborate blessing rituals that could last for hours, treating spiritual preparation as more important than tactical planning. Equipment shortages reached levels that turned Russian soldiers into scavengers during active combat. Officers regularly instructed their men to collect rifles from fallen comrades rather than expecting proper weapon supplies from military stores. This meant Russian soldiers entered battles knowing they might need to crawl across corpse-filled battlefields to find functioning firearms. Some men went into combat completely unarmed, waiting for casualties to provide them with weapons. The practice created a grotesque economy where Russian soldiers competed for rifles from their own dead teammates. Ammunition shortages compounded this problem, with soldiers limited to specific numbers of bullets regardless of combat duration. Some Russian units received 10 rounds per man for battles that lasted days, forcing extreme conservation of ammunition.